They're gone. Here's the thing. Nobody's stepping up and filling their shoes. Where are spiritual leaders? Either they have made it on, or folks, they have fallen by the wayside. Gave up on God. Gave up on God's people. Gave up on the straight and narrow way. They've given up. Folks, maybe I'm under a misunderstanding here. I'm not very old. When I was a kid, I don't remember ever going to a church and them not having a pastor. Maybe I'm just missing something here. But now you go and look, and folks, it seems like there's more churches without a pastor than churches that do have a pastor. Now you can't blame that on God, because God is calling people to fill those positions, and people are not answering God's call. Where are our spiritual leaders? Dead and gone. Moses had completed. Man, I'd like for God to say, my servant's dead at my funeral. Wouldn't you like to hear that? But see, folks, people don't have to stay here forever. Paul went on. Peter went on. Even Christ himself went on. And then here's the last one. Those good-hearted people are still hanging in here. Folks, they're just about worn out, because they don't have any help. Fighting a battle by themselves. So they're either going on, falling away, or worn out. Brother Blake, you are preaching or teaching or speaking, whatever you're doing. It's gloom, doom, and despair. Well, yeah, without God, it is gloom, doom, and despair. We have a country that's confused. We have a country full of drugs, full of violence, full of death. Families are broken. We don't have any solutions. We don't have any leaders showing us what God wants us to do. There's no leader in the home. There's no leader in the White House. There's no leaders in the churches. What in the world are we going to do? Well, what did the children of Israel do? That's the same thing we're going to do. Look what God did. When Moses passed away, God called another. God called another. And his name was Joshua. Tonight, folks, we can sit here and we can talk about how the world is full of sin. I can preach on sin. I can preach on the lack of peace. I can preach on a lack of joy. But folks, more than anything, what needs to come out of a pulpit is the lack of action from God's people. That's what needs to be preached. God is calling, but folks, God can't do it himself. He needs vessels to move and to be what he wants them to be. God called Joshua and he answered. Tonight, if you're tired of looking in the world and seeing what you see, and tired of your family being ruined by drugs, if you're tired of all these awful things going on, answer the call that God has given you. Act upon God. Folks, too many times do we sit around and preach about all these other things, but it always seems to be like something that's going on in the church house. You realize the majority of your work for God's not done in here. We understand that tonight. So much of Christianity is focused on what you do inside of a church. But you go read the New Testament. How many times you read about Jesus being in a church versus or a temple versus how many times he was out in the streets and out in buildings and out here and out there? Folks, we need to act. We need to act. Notice the call here. I only got 3 more things to say and I want to be done. We got this great issue, this great barrier. Though Jordan may be deep and wide, folks, it doesn't compare to the troubles of this world. And though we may have a lack of leadership, folks, there's not a lack of leadership on the throne of God. God is still God. God is not dead. God is not asleep. He's still who he is and will always be. Notice how this happened. I read some commentary, and it said soon as Moses died. Now you go back and you remember who was there when Moses died. I can tell you who was. God was. So he knew when it happened. Soon, the Bible commentary that I read, several of them said that soon Moses had passed. There was a call sent out. As soon as Moses had died, God began to deal with Joshua. Let me tell you something tonight. God's not twiddling his thumbs. I know I broke my promise. God's not twiddling his thumbs tonight. God's not going around scratching his head thinking, man, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? Folks, He's calling now. Not when altar call song comes on. He's calling now. He's calling at your heart now to get up from whatever you're doing and go and arise and cross this river of Jordan. He's calling you up now. And He's been calling you. He was calling you yesterday. He was calling you the day before that, the week before that. God is not waiting here. God knows the urgency. God knows what's going on. He is calling now as my voice cries out. God is calling unto you right now. It was a quick call immediately. God's not slumbering. God's not asleep. Now notice what He tells Joshua to do. It says, be strong and of a good courage. Commentary says that you could almost literally say, be like a man. That's what that says right there. Be like a man. Now look, I don't know about you, but I've got a grandpa, and he's a veteran. And if you got a problem and you're complaining about it, the only problem you got is because you haven't done something about it. That's just how He is. Don't you come complaining to Him. You better just go take care of it. That's just how I was raised. Now look, you know what God's telling us here? We got to man up. We got to woman up tonight. Quit playing games. Quit sitting in a pile of pity. Quit sitting there and not doing anything saying, woe is me. God said we got to get up and we got to be strong. We've got to be of a good courage. There's a mighty river there and there's a host full of enemies across on the other side of that river. Folks, we need to be strong. We need to have courage. Too many times that we sit around as God's people. This hit me the other night, folks. I just preach all my life. You know, for the last year or two, I've just been such a self-pity. Can't do nothing right. Can't get anything right. Can't do anything right. I'm just ruining it all. God hit me upside the head about 2 months ago. He said, you got more faith in the devil than you do me. He called me on it. And I said, no, He didn't say I didn't have any faith in Him. He said, you do have faith in me. But you got more faith in the devil than you do me. And he was right. He was absolute. Folks, I found this out. If we do not get up from whatever we're in and be strong and go with courage and boldness and faith in God and just go fight the enemy and sitting there wondering what we're going to do. Folks, if we don't do that, we'll never get up. We'll never get up. Folks, I'd sit there and say, woe is me, and I found out the only thing that led me to do is do more trouble and more harm to myself. And I got in a bigger pile of pity and said, woe is me. Tonight, be strong of a good courage. The Lord has called you out, folks. He wouldn't call you if He didn't know you could do it. He's called you out. Be strong and have a good faith. Amen. Now here's the key of it all. And it's probably the strongest point that I can bring to you tonight. Look what He tells Joshua. He says, observe to do all according to the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left hand. Thou mayst prosper, that thou mayst prosper. Wherever soever, that's a hard word to say, thou goest. Let me show you a little English.